"Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel." She told me she needed space. I gave her the whole damn house. That morning, she walked out dragging her green suitcase. The one I bought her for our anniversary in Charleston. The one she pretended she didn't remember where it came from. Her heels clicked down the front steps like a countdown, and just before the door slammed, she said, "Don't try to fix this, Liam. Let it be easy." Easy. The word bounced around the living room like a cruel echo. I stood there staring at the coffee mug she left on the counter. "His queen," it said. I guess the king mug could go in the trash. She didn't know that while she packed, I'd slipped something inside that suitcase. I didn't do it to be clever. I did it because I couldn't yell, couldn't beg, couldn't be one of those men who sobbed at the curb asking, "Was it someone else?" Even though I already knew the answer. What I wrote wasn't long. Just a note, folded once, taped to the inside of the lining, under her jeans and that stupid silk robe she only wore after girl nights. It said, "You left. I won't chase, but read this again when your smile fades." I didn't expect it to mean anything. Until 72 hours later, I heard a car door slam. I peeked through the blinds like some paranoid neighbor. And there she was. Same suitcase. Makeup smudged. Red eyes. Same silk robe, no jacket, just the robe. She didn't knock. Just stood there on the porch, like a kid who lost her ticket back home. And in that moment, as I walked toward the door, one question burned hotter than any heartbreak. Why the hell did she come back wearing that robe? I didn't open the door right away. I stood in the hallway with my hand hovering over the knob, heart thudding like a slow drum. Through the frosted glass, I could see the outline of her figure. She wasn't moving, not knocking, just waiting. That robe, the pale lavender silk one she used to wear when she wanted to feel pretty without trying, looked ridiculous now in the middle of October, in the cold under that flickering porch light. It was as if she thought wearing it would trigger something in me, a memory maybe, some old softness. But all I felt was suspicion. I opened the door a crack, and she looked up, startled. Her voice came out raspy like she hadn't spoken in days. "Liam? Can I come in?" I leaned against the frame. "Didn't think you'd want to anymore." She bit her lip and gave a nervous laugh, the kind she used to use on waiters when she wanted a free dessert. "Look, can we just talk inside, please?" I stepped aside without a word. She walked in slowly, scanning the living room like it was a crime scene. Maybe in some ways it was. Nothing had changed. I kept the throw blanket folded over the couch, the one she always pushed aside. Her mug was still on the counter, now cracked from when I dropped it the day she left. And the silence she left behind? It hadn't gone anywhere. She sat on the edge of the armchair, like she didn't want to commit to staying. I stood by the window, arms crossed, saying nothing. I was waiting for her to speak first. She stared at her hands, then finally looked up. "I read your note." I didn't move. It kind of destroyed me," she whispered. "You didn't even try, Liam. You just let me go." "You asked me to," I said quietly. She shook her head like that wasn't the point. "But I expected you to fight. I thought you'd call, show up, make a scene or something." That made me laugh. Not out of humor, but disbelief. "So, you left me for someone else, and you wanted me to chase you? That's what this was? A test?" Her eyes flickered. "I didn't leave you for him. You moved into his condo the same night. Alina told me." That's when her composure cracked. She dropped her face into her hands and let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a groan. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that. I felt invisible, Liam. For months. You were always so quiet. So predictable. I thought I wanted something else. But the second I got it, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. And then I found that note and, I don't know, it hit me harder than I thought words ever could." I walked toward her slowly. Not because I was about to comfort her, but because I needed to see her face when I said it. "That's the difference between you and me," I said. "You needed noise. I needed peace. And now you're back wearing that robe like it's a key to this house." She opened her mouth to say something, but I wasn't done. "I'm not angry," I told her. But you're not the only one who read that note more than once. She blinked. What do you mean? I pointed toward the kitchen. A soft giggle echoed from the hallway just past the stairs. A shadow moved. Another presence. I've had company. Her eyes widened. You're seeing someone? I didn't chase you, remember? I said, backing away. But someone else stayed. And just like that, her regret turned into panic. She didn't say anything for a full 10 seconds. Just stared at me like I'd spoken in a language she'd never heard before. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. That giggle from the hallway echoed again, lighter this time, like the kind you'd hear in a moment of relief, not seduction. Still, Alina's face flushed deep red. Her eyes darted to the kitchen, then back to me, and suddenly I could feel her calculating, measuring, scrambling for a narrative that gave her some leverage again. But for the first time in years, I wasn't giving her one. I'm sorry, she whispered, though it didn't sound like an apology, more like a reflex, something she said to buy herself time. I nodded slowly. I know you are. She stood up. Can we talk? Alone? I shrugged. We are alone, until we're not. She flinched at that. Who is she, Liam? The question hung in the air like cigarette smoke. I could see it all over her face. She hadn't planned for this version of the story. She expected me to be broken, maybe even desperate. But not this. Not calm. Not collected. Definitely not moving on. I don't think that's your business anymore, I said. But since you asked. She's someone who didn't walk out when things got quiet. Alina took a step forward, voice rising. So you're seriously telling me, 3 days after I leave, you're already sleeping with someone else? I didn't flinch. You didn't ask how long she's been here. Her jaw clenched. Unbelievable. Is it? I said, tilting my head. You left this house with a suitcase and a plan. You changed your name back online before the ink on your filing was even dry. You went to a party and danced on someone else's rooftop like our marriage was a prison break. And now I'm the bad guy? Her eyes welled up, but I didn't feel anything. Not rage, not pity, not nostalgia. Just stillness. She's not who you think, Alina said suddenly. I blinked. Excuse me? She looked toward the hallway, then back at me with something between horror and disbelief. That voice, that laugh, it sounded like. She didn't finish. I let her sit with that discomfort. Let her twist in her own confusion for a moment before I spoke again. You always underestimated how much people notice when you push someone quiet too far, I said. You thought silence meant weakness, but silence was just me watching, waiting. Alina stepped toward the hallway like her body was moving before her mind could stop it. Her hand reached out to the edge of the wall, fingers trembling as she peeked around the corner. And then there it was, the gasp, like the air had been sucked out of her lungs. She turned back to me, lips parted, face pale. You're lying, she whispered. You wouldn't. I didn't have to do anything, I said. She knocked on the door an hour after you left. Alina's voice cracked. You're with her. I just looked at her. She was supposed to be my friend. I nodded. Yeah, that's what she thought about you too. Until you told her everything. Until you used her as your emotional dump when you started pulling away from me. But she didn't come here to betray you, Alina. She came here to make sure I didn't drown. Silence again. Only this time I owned it. Alina backed up, bumping into the arm of the couch. Her hands were shaking now. I could see her trying to find something to anchor herself to. A chair, a memory, maybe just some excuse. But nothing came. And for the first time in a long time, I felt still, and she felt lost. She didn't ask to sit down again. She just stood there, gripping the side of the couch like it was the only thing holding her up. I could see it now, the full collapse happening behind her eyes. The robe, the trembling lip, the dramatic return. It wasn't just guilt or regret. It was the horrifying realization that I'd been capable of moving on without her. And worse, that I hadn't made a show of it. That's what was eating her alive. The quietness of it all. You let her stay here? Alina asked finally, her voice sharp but cracking around the edges. The same night, I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a glass, filled it with water, and took a long sip before answering. I wanted to enjoy the pause, make her feel the delay like she used to make me wait for answers that never came. When I returned, I didn't offer her a glass. She noticed. "She didn't stay in the way you're thinking," I said flatly. "But yes, she came by. And no, I didn't invite her. She said she was driving home from her sister's when she saw your car pull out. Said she had a weird feeling and stopped by to check on me." Alina's arms folded over her chest. "And she just happened to bring a bag with her?" "She didn't. She didn't plan to stay. But we ended up talking. On the porch. For almost 5 hours. No phones. No distractions. Just words. Something you and I hadn't done in what? A year?" She flinched. Good. Because now she knew what it felt like to be on the other side of the wall. I stepped closer, speaking lower now. "She sat right there," I said, motioning toward the armchair, "and asked me if I was okay. Not out of pity. Not out of curiosity. Just because. She didn't say you were wrong. She didn't try to make me feel better. She just listened. Then she told me something that froze me." Alina looked up. She said, "Liam, it's not that she didn't love you. It's that she didn't think she had to anymore." That landed like a slap. I watched her swallow hard, her fingers twitching as they clenched and unclenched at her sides. "She doesn't know anything about us," she whispered. "She doesn't know what I felt." "No," I said, "but she knew what I felt, and that's more than I can say for you." Alina moved toward the hallway again, slower this time, like she was scared of what she might find if she looked. I stepped in front of her. "She's not here now," I said. "She left last night." Alina blinked in surprise. "Why?" "She didn't want to be caught in the middle. Said I needed space to hear myself think." She looked down at the floor, then up at me. "So are you too?" "No," I said quickly. "But we might be. I don't know. What I do know is she reminded me of something I forgot." Alina's voice trembled. "What's that?" "That I was never the weak one in this marriage." She looked like she might break in half. "Liam, I didn't come back to fight. I didn't expect you to forgive me either. But I thought, maybe we could talk." I leaned against the wall and crossed my arms. "You had 18 years to talk. You waited until the divorce papers were signed, your rebound was bored with you, and the party pictures didn't get enough likes. And now you're here wearing a robe like it's armor." She shook her head. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me," I said. "Tell me what it was like, that night, after you left." She looked away, eyes glossy. "He was charming at first. Said all the right things. Made me feel seen. But the second we were alone, he started treating me like I was a prize he'd stolen, not a person." I said nothing. Let her sit in that. "I cried in the guest room," she continued, her voice barely audible. "He didn't even check on me. Just said I should sleep it off. That's when I opened the suitcase and saw your note." I nodded slowly. "And now?" I asked. She met my eyes. "Now I can't stop hearing your silence." She stayed longer than I expected. Not because she had anything to offer. She didn't. But because regret clings to people like her. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. It latches on and drags them backward through their own choices like barbed wire. I watched her sitting there, now curled up in the same armchair where that other woman sat, the one who didn't leave. Her hands were folded, her eyes glossy. She looked like she was hoping I'd say something to save her from drowning in her own decisions. But I didn't throw her a rope. Not yet. "I didn't realize what I was doing," she said again, trying to rewind time with explanations. "I thought I was just unhappy, that it was your fault, that I needed more." I laughed, not kindly. "More? Like Jeremy?" Her expression told me she hadn't expected me to say the name out loud. "He was a mistake." I leaned in. "No, Alina. A mistake is forgetting your keys. What you did was a decision. You didn't trip and fall into his bed. You planned it. You packed a bag. You got dressed. You smiled for pictures at someone else's house while I was here eating leftovers and trying to remember what the hell I did wrong. I thought you didn't care, she whispered. That's because you stopped looking, I snapped. You only saw what made it easier to leave. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. I wasn't done. I walked over to the side table and pulled open the drawer. From it, I took out another yellow envelope, identical to the one she'd left with on divorce day. Her eyes narrowed. What's that? I held it up, tapping the edge with my fingers. Round 2, I said calmly. You weren't the only one who drafted papers. She went pale. What do you mean? I spoke to my attorney last week, I said. No more hesitation. No more confusion. No more guilt. These are my terms. My closure. You started it. I'm finishing it. She stood up slowly, her knees visibly trembling. Liam, please don't do this. I placed the envelope on the coffee table, right next to the cracked His Queen mug that I hadn't thrown away. Maybe it was petty. Maybe it was symbolic. I didn't care anymore. You left, I reminded her. You blocked me. You told the world you were free. I accepted it. And now that you've realized freedom doesn't mean being worshipped by someone who doesn't know your middle name, you want to reverse time. But time doesn't run backward, Alina, and I'm not your safety net. Tears spilled over her lashes. But what if I still love you? That's not love, I said, cold and clear. That's regret. She sat down again, slower this time, like gravity had increased. I slid the envelope toward her. She didn't touch it. Her fingers hovered above it for a second before retreating like the paper might burn her. I don't want your terms, she said quietly. You had a say the first time, I replied. This one's mine. I watched her shrink into that armchair, the same one she used to curl up in when we binge-watched crime documentaries together. She looked small now, shrunken, like a faded version of herself. Her pride had peeled away, layer by layer, and now there was only fear and confusion, the exact emotions she left me with weeks ago. But the moment that really shook her, it wasn't the envelope. It was what I said next. By the way, I added, walking toward the door. She read the note too. Alina blinked. Who? The one who stayed. The one who listened. She looked up at me, panic flashing in her eyes. You let her read it? I didn't let her, I said. She found it. When she stayed over. She was folding laundry, mine by the way, and it fell out of your suitcase. Silence. She cried. I continued. Not for you. For me. She said she didn't understand how someone could leave a man who loved so quietly, so completely. Alina stood up. You're trying to hurt me. No, I said. You already hurt yourself. I'm just the mirror. And with that, I opened the front door and looked at her one last time. You should go. She didn't leave. That was the first sign something was off. I told her to go, as directly and clearly as anyone could, and yet, instead of walking out, she just stood there. Her eyes were locked on the envelope I placed on the table like it had a detonator inside. I waited. 30 seconds passed. Then a full minute. Still nothing. Finally, I sighed and turned to head upstairs, thinking she'd get the message and see herself out. But before my foot hit the second step, she said it. I'm pregnant. I stopped cold. There wasn't a single part of me prepared for that. Not after everything she'd done. Not after the nights I spent pacing the kitchen wondering what I could have done differently. Not after the silence she weaponized like a sword. I turned slowly, my hand gripping the banister tighter than I meant to. Say that again? I asked, almost daring her. She nodded, voice trembling. I didn't want to tell you like this. I didn't even know for sure until 2 days ago. I was going to call, but I thought it would sound like manipulation. It does sound like manipulation, I snapped. Especially since I know where you were the night you left. I swear it's yours. I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of exhausted, hopeless laugh that escapes when you realize nothing is going to make sense ever again. And I'm just supposed to take your word for that? After everything? I stared at her. You're not even divorced yet, and you already have a nuclear card to play. I didn't plan this, Liam. I was scared too. Okay? That night, yes, I went to Jeremy's. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't go through with it. I raised my eyebrows. Couldn't go through with what? Cheating on your husband after signing the papers you served him without warning? She shook her head, wiping her face. No, I didn't sleep with him. I stayed on the couch. I cried all night. I told him it was a mistake. He didn't care. He said if I wanted drama, I should go back to you. How poetic. She stepped closer. Look, I get it. I deserve every ounce of bitterness you feel. But this isn't some ploy, Liam. This is real. I don't want anything from you. I'm not here to trap you. I needed you to know. Because whatever we were, however broken, there's still a part of you in me now. That line should have hit me like a truck. But it didn't. It just sank. Quietly. I didn't respond. I walked back to the coffee table, picked up the envelope, and flipped it open. She watched me in silence, eyes wide, like she thought I was about to rip it up. But I didn't. I pulled out the document. 4 pages. Neatly typed. Clear terms. I held it out to her. Take it, I said. She hesitated. Liam, please. No. I cut her off. Take it. Sign it. And if what you said is true, if that child is mine, then we'll figure it out. But I'm not tying myself to someone who only wants to stay because their backup plan imploded. She looked like she wanted to scream, cry, beg, all at once. But instead, she took the papers. And then, as if this moment wasn't already surreal enough, she reached into her purse and pulled out another envelope. Thinner, older, worn. What is that? I asked. She handed it to me slowly, like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I wrote this the morning I left, she said quietly. I never had the courage to give it to you, but it explains everything, or at least it tries to. I stared at it, unsure whether to open it or burn it. I'll come back tomorrow, she said. You'll have your answer by then. And just like that, she turned and walked out, this time for real. No suitcase, no robe, just a woman who no longer looked sure of anything. As the door clicked shut, I sat down, holding her letter like it was a ticking bomb. 1,000 thoughts raced through my head, but only one stayed. What the hell could possibly be in that envelope that she hadn't already destroyed? I stared at the envelope for what felt like an hour. My thumb hovered over the seal, but I couldn't bring myself to break it. Not because I was afraid of what was inside, but because I already knew. Somewhere deep in my gut, I felt it. That there was something in those pages that would finish what Alina had started. Ending a marriage with a divorce is one thing. Ending it with the truth? That's a different kind of destruction. Eventually, I opened it. Slowly. The paper inside was folded 3 times, written in her handwriting, rushed and uneven like she hadn't been sure what she wanted to say until the moment she started writing. Liam, if you're reading this, I probably didn't have the courage to say what I needed to out loud. I owe you that. I owe you more than that. I know you think this came out of nowhere, that I just woke up one morning and decided I didn't love you. But it wasn't like that. I started slipping away years ago, and I was too much of a coward to tell you. You were steady. You were safe. But I felt invisible, like I was slowly becoming a shadow in my own life. And then someone noticed me. That line stopped me. My fingers clenched the page tighter than I meant to. His name was Owen. You never met him. He's not Jeremy. Jeremy was just noise, a distraction when things were already broken. But Owen, he was the beginning of the end. It started harmless. Long talks at the cafe, texting about books, music. Things I told myself were innocent. But then it became emotional, intimate, not physical, not at first. I told myself that as long as we didn't cross that line, I wasn't doing anything wrong. But I was, and I knew it. I sat back against the couch. My mind replayed moments I'd long forgotten. The sudden phone calls she'd take in the other room, the unexplained smiles at her phone, the nights she said she was staying late at the library, just to clear her head. I had chalked it up to stress, to her needing space. And maybe that's why this hurt more than anything, because I'd given her that space, thinking it would save us. and she had used it to walk into someone else's arms. The truth is, I think I loved him. For a while. But he didn't want me the way you did. He didn't see a future, just a moment. I stayed in that moment too long. And by the time I realized he wasn't real, I had already erased too much of what we had. That's when the guilt became unbearable. So I ran from both of you. You deserve to know that. No lies. No more pretending. I wanted to stop reading. But I kept going. When I left, I thought I was freeing myself. I thought I was giving you a gift. Some clean break where you could finally be with someone who didn't look over your shoulder every time the doorbell rang. But now I see what I really did. I threw away the one person who loved me even when I didn't deserve it. I folded the letter back up before I reached the end. I didn't want her apology. I didn't care about her regrets. I just sat there, sinking deeper into the quiet that had followed me ever since she left. And for the first time, I understood something I hadn't before. She didn't destroy our marriage in one moment. It had been dying in whispers, in little betrayals, in unspoken truths, in things she thought she could keep hidden. And I had helped her do it, by staying quiet, by choosing peace over confrontation, by convincing myself that being the nice guy was enough. I stood up, walked into the kitchen, and opened the trash can. The letter went in without hesitation. And then I pulled out my phone. I stared at one name in particular. The one person who hadn't flinched when I fell apart. The one who never once asked me to be someone else. My thumb hovered over the call button. Because maybe, just maybe, it was time I stopped being the man people only remembered after they broke something. The phone rang once, then twice. By the third ring, I nearly hung up. Not because I was unsure of calling her, but because I was afraid she might not answer. After everything I'd been through, I didn't think I had it in me to handle another form of rejection. But she picked up. Liam. Her voice was soft, warmer than I remembered. It pulled something out of me I thought I'd buried for good, not love, not desire, but hope. Hey, I said, unsure what came next. You free? There was a pause, then a slight laugh. I was wondering when you'd call. We didn't talk about Alina. We didn't talk about betrayal or letters or envelopes. We just talked. About nothing and everything. About our favorite late-night diners, about the podcast she told me to listen to but I never did. About how it snowed in October and neither of us remembered that happening before. By the time we said goodnight, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, calm. The next morning I opened the curtains. I made real coffee instead of instant. I showered, put on an actual shirt, and stepped out of the house for no reason other than I wanted to. Alina did call again. She texted too. I didn't block her. I didn't rage. I didn't erase her. I just didn't answer. Because some stories don't need to be rewritten. They just need to end cleanly, honestly, without dragging the past into the future. And that envelope, the one I gave her, she mailed it back. Signed. I didn't frame it. I didn't even open it. I just filed it away in the drawer with the other papers, the ones that marked the end of something and the beginning of something else. A few weeks later, the woman who stayed, the one who didn't run, didn't lie, showed up at my door. No makeup, no pretense, just a smile and 2 cups of coffee. I thought we could try being quiet together, she said. So we did. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel invisible. Thank you for sticking with us to the end of this emotional roller coaster on Reddit Confessions. What moment in the story surprised you the most? The suitcase note, the hidden letter, or Liam's final choice? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Reddit Confessions for more real, raw, and unforgettable stories.